The diamond ring slipped from Gabrielle's trembling fingers, bouncing once on the marble floor before rolling toward the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite. She didn't move to retrieve it. Outside, the Manhattan skyline glittered with 1,000 lights, but all she could see was the impossible choice laid before her. The empire she'd built with her own 2 hands, or the man who had somehow become her entire world. "Choose," Alexander whispered, his voice breaking on that single word. "Choose me, or choose Laurent Cosmetics. I can't keep sharing you with a company that takes everything from you, that takes you away from me." Gabrielle's heart shattered as she looked into his storm gray eyes, seeing the desperation there, the love, the pain. She had built her company from nothing, sacrificed everything to prove that a girl from Brooklyn could change an entire industry. How could he ask her to give that up? How could she choose anything other than the dream she'd bled for? "I can't," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Alexander, I love you, but I can't choose. Don't make me choose." "Then you've already made your choice," he said, his voice hollow. "Goodbye, Gabrielle." But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This story began 6 months earlier, on a night when neither of them believed in fate. Before we start from where it all began, a beautiful shout-out to some of our amazing community members who watch many of our stories. Joe L. Whitfield, Sint Purpal from Miami, Florida, and Shoshana NZ Naftalins. We love and appreciate your constant engagement in the community. Thanks a bunch. Now let's begin. Gabrielle Laurent had exactly 17 minutes to make it across town. Her Louboutins clicked against the rain-slicked pavement as she clutched her leather portfolio to her chest, mentally rehearsing her presentation. The Sterling Tower loomed ahead, all steel and glass and power. Inside those walls, the board of directors waited to hear her pitch. The pitch that would either secure the $50 million investment her luxury cosmetics company desperately needed, or send 5 years of her blood, sweat, and tears crumbling into dust. She was so focused on her notes that she didn't see him until it was too late. The collision sent her portfolio flying, papers scattering across the lobby floor like autumn leaves. Strong hands caught her waist, steadying her before she could fall. "I'm so sorry, Gabrielle looked up, and the apology died on her lips. The man before her was devastatingly handsome in that effortless way that came with generations of good breeding and better genetics. Chiseled jaw, storm gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her, dark hair just slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. His charcoal suit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Are you all right?" His voice was deep, concerned, with just a hint of something that made her pulse quicken. "I'm fine," she managed, pulling away from his grip and dropping to gather her scattered papers. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm late for a meeting." He crouched beside her, helping collect the documents. His fingers brushed hers as he handed her a stack of papers, and electricity sparked between them. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the bustling lobby seemed to fade away. "Laurent Cosmetics," he read from one of the pages, his brow furrowing. "You're here for the investment pitch." Her heart sank. "You're on the board?" A slight smile played at his lips. "Something like that." He stood, offering his hand to help her up. "Alexander Cortland." The name hit her like a thunderbolt. Alexander Cortland, CEO of Cortland Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in North America. Billionaire, notorious dealmaker, and if the gossip magazines were to be believed, Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Also, the man whose final approval she needed to secure her company's future. "Gabrielle Laurent," she said, accepting his hand and rising with as much dignity as she could muster. "I suppose I've made quite the first impression." "You certainly have," he said, his gray eyes twinkling with amusement. "Shall we head upstairs? I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say." As they walked toward the elevator, Gabrielle tried to ignore the way her hands still tingled where he'd touched her, the way his subtle cologne made her head spin, the way his presence beside her felt both thrilling and terrifying. She had no way of knowing that the elevator doors closing behind them would change both their lives forever. The boardroom was exactly as intimidating as Gabrielle had imagined. 12 stern faces regarded her from around an enormous mahogany table, but she forced herself to focus only on her presentation, not on Alexander Cortland sitting at the head of that table, his intense gaze never leaving her face. "Laurent Cosmetics isn't just another beauty brand," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It's a revolution. For too long, women of color have been an afterthought in the beauty industry. 6 shades instead of 60. Formulas that don't work with our skin chemistry. Marketing that excludes us from the conversation. She clicked through her slides, each one punctuated with passion and precision. Sales figures that showed 300% growth year over year. Testimonials from customers whose lives had been changed by finally finding products made for them. Projections that made even the most skeptical board members lean forward with interest. But it was Alexander she couldn't stop watching from the corner of her eye. He didn't take notes like the others. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. The beauty industry is worth $532 billion globally, she concluded, and we're positioned to capture a significant share of a market that has been underserved and overlooked. With your investment, we won't just grow. We'll transform an entire industry. Silence fell over the room. Then slowly, Alexander began to clap. The others joined in, and Gabrielle released the breath she'd been holding. Thank you, Ms. Laurent, Alexander said, standing. That was extraordinary. We'll need to discuss internally and we'll have an answer for you by end of week. End of week, that meant they had doubts. As the board members filed out, Alexander remained. He approached her slowly, hands in his pockets, that same unreadable expression on his perfect face. You're remarkable, he said simply. Everything I've read about you, everything I've heard, it doesn't do you justice. Gabrielle's breath caught. You researched me? Of course. I never go into a meeting unprepared. He paused, then seemed to make a decision. Have dinner with me tonight. What? Dinner, to discuss the investment. His eyes held hers, and she could see something more than business interest there. And perhaps to apologize properly for nearly knocking you over in the lobby. Every professional instinct screamed at her to say no. You didn't mix business with pleasure, especially not with a billionaire who held your company's future in his hands. Okay, she heard herself say. His smile could have lit up the entire city. I'll pick you up at 8. The first date became a second, then a third, then countless nights where time seemed to stop. Alexander pursued her with a single-minded determination that took her breath away. He sent flowers every morning, not generic roses, but rare blooms from around the world, each with handwritten notes that made her heart flutter. Your smile is the only investment I care about today. A. Thinking of you is my favorite distraction. A. Come away with me this weekend. Let me show you Paris. A. She fell for him like rain, inevitable, unstoppable, all-consuming. He showed her a world she'd never imagined. Private jets to the French Riviera, spontaneous trips to Tuscany, galas where she wore diamonds that cost more than her first apartment. But what made her truly fall in love were the small moments. Alexander cooking breakfast in her tiny Brooklyn kitchen, laughing when he burned the eggs, him showing up at her office at midnight with Chinese takeout when she was working late. The way he listened to her dreams like they were the most important things in the world. I love you, he told her one night as they stood on his penthouse balcony. The city spread before them like a blanket of stars. I've never said that to anyone before, but Gabriel, I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, she whispered, and knew she'd never meant anything more in her life. They moved in together after 3 months. Her brownstone sold, her life packed into boxes and transported to his world of marble and glass and endless luxury. This is our home now, he said, spinning her around the living room. Our future. She should have seen the warning signs, should have noticed how her world was slowly shrinking to fit inside his. The cracks started small. Cancel the Tokyo trip, Alexander said one morning, barely looking up from his coffee. I need you at the Hamptons this weekend. The governor will be there. Important connections. Alexander, I can't. The Japanese launch is crucial. Send your VP. You're always working, Gabriel. We need time together. She canceled the trip, then she canceled the next one. And the next? Her assistant started looking at her with worry. Gabriel, you've missed 3 international launches. People are starting to talk. I know, she snapped, then immediately felt guilty. I'm sorry, I need to balance everything. But the balance kept tipping. Alexander's needs, Alexander's schedule, Alexander's world. She loved him desperately, but she was disappearing piece by piece, and she didn't know how to stop it. The real breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Gabrielle had been working for 16 hours straight, finalizing a deal that would expand Laurent Cosmetics into 20 new countries. She was exhausted, exhilarated, proud. She came home to find Alexander waiting, his face dark. "You missed dinner," he said coldly. "With my mother. She flew in from Boston specifically to meet you." Gabriel's stomach dropped. "Alexander, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot." "You forgot. Like you forgot our anniversary dinner last month. Like you forgot my company's gala 2 weeks ago." He stood, and she could see something dangerous in his eyes. "I'm tired of competing with your company, Gabrielle. I'm tired of coming second. That's not fair. You knew who I was when we met." "I thought you'd change." The words exploded out of him. "I thought once you had success, once you had me, you'd stop this endless, obsessive need to prove yourself." The silence that followed was deafening. "Get out," Gabrielle said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my sight before I say something I can't take back." Her voice shook with rage and heartbreak. "You thought I'd change? You fell in love with my ambition, my drive, my passion, and now you want to kill all of that to make me into some docile trophy wife?" "That's not what I—" "Get out!" He left, and she crumpled to the floor, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. They tried to fix it. God, how they tried. Couples therapy, planned date nights, desperate attempts to recapture what they'd had. But Alexander's resentment grew like poison, and Gabrielle's walls went higher and higher. Then came the night that changed everything. Alexander came home with a small box, his face serious. For one wild moment, Gabrielle thought it was an engagement ring. Instead, he pulled out a diamond bracelet, glittering and cold. "What's this?" she asked. "A gift, an apology, and a proposal of sorts." He took her hands. "Gabrielle, I love you, but this isn't working. So I have a solution. Sell Laurent Cosmetics." The world stopped spinning. "What did you just say?" "Sell the company. I've already found buyers. You'd make a fortune. Enough to start 10 new companies if you wanted. But this one, this obsession, it's destroying us." His eyes were desperate, pleading. "Choose us, Gabrielle. Choose me. Let go of this company that's stealing you from me." "Stealing me?" She yanked her hands away. "Alexander, that company is me. It's everything I've worked for, everything I am." "And that's the problem." He was shouting now, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, but I can't keep living like this. I need a partner. Not a ghost who's always working, always traveling, always putting me second." "Then maybe you need to find someone else," she screamed back. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and irrevocable. Alexander's face crumbled. "Is that what you want? I want you to stop asking me to choose between the two things I love most in the world." She was crying too now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Why can't I have both? Why isn't loving you enough? Why do I have to give up my dreams to prove I love you?" He pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket, the real one, the engagement ring. "Because I can't marry someone who will never put me first," he said, his voice breaking. "So here it is, Gabrielle, the real choice. Marry me, sell the company, build a life with me as your priority. Or keep your empire and lose me. Choose." The ring tumbled from his hand, bouncing across the marble floor. Gabrielle stared at the ring lying between them, her heart shattering into a million pieces. Every cell in her body screamed to say yes, to choose love, choose Alexander, choose the fairy tale. But she thought of her mother, working 3 jobs to send her to college. She thought of every woman who had invested in Laurent Cosmetics, who had finally seen themselves represented in an industry that had ignored them. She thought of her 13-year-old self, mixing makeup in her mother's kitchen, dreaming of changing the world. "I can't," she whispered. "What?" She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Alexander. God, I love you so much I can barely breathe, but I can't give up my company. Not for anyone, not even for you." "Then you've made your choice." His voice was dead, empty. "Don't do this. Don't make me choose." "Goodbye, Gabrielle." He walked out. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. Gabrielle collapsed, sobbing so hard she thought she might die from the pain. She'd chosen her company over the love of her life, and it felt like ripping out her own heart. The first week without Alexander was agony. Gabrielle threw herself into work, desperate for distraction. She flew to London, to Tokyo, to Sydney. She signed deals, opened stores, appeared on magazine covers with a smile that never reached her eyes. At night, she lay in hotel rooms and cried until she had nothing left. Meanwhile, Alexander was drowning. His penthouse became a mausoleum. He couldn't sleep in their bed. Her perfume still lingered on the sheets. He couldn't cook breakfast without remembering her laughter in the kitchen. Every corner held a memory that cut like glass. "Mr. Cortland, you have the board meeting in 10 minutes, his assistant said gently. Alexander looked up from his desk, where he'd been staring at nothing for the past hour. "Cancel it." "Sir, this is the third meeting you've canceled this week. I said cancel it." He stood abruptly, sending papers scattering, then quieter. "I'm sorry, I can't do this today." He wandered the city like a ghost, ending up at their spot, a small cafe in the village where they'd had their first real conversation, before the complications, before the heartbreak. He sat at their usual table, ordered her favorite coffee along with his, and let the tears fall. "I miss you," he whispered to the empty chair across from him. "God, Gabriel, I miss you so much." The barista had seen him there every day for 2 weeks, always at the same table, always ordering 2 coffees, always leaving one untouched. Alexander stopped caring about his empire. Meetings ran without him. Deals fell through. His board grew concerned, but he couldn't bring himself to care. What was the point of an empire if you had no one to share it with? He'd lie awake at night, replaying their last conversation, hating himself. Why had he made her choose? Why hadn't he been strong enough to love her exactly as she was? "You're a fool," his mother told him one afternoon, finding him in the penthouse, unshaven and miserable. "That woman loved you and you pushed her away." "She chose her company over me," he said bitterly. "No, you forced her to choose, and you're surprised she chose the thing that would never abandon her, never try to change her, never ask her to be less than she is?" His mother sat beside him. "Alexander, you didn't lose her because she didn't love you enough. You lost her because you didn't love her right." The words hit him like a freight train. 3 months after Gabriel left, Alexander was still a shell of himself. It was a Tuesday when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Is this Alexander Cortland?" An unfamiliar voice, professional but urgent. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Mount Sinai Hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact for Gabrielle Laurent. I'm afraid she's been in an accident." The world stopped. "What? What happened?" "A car accident. She's in surgery now. You should come immediately." Alexander didn't remember the drive to the hospital. Didn't remember parking or running through the emergency room doors or demanding to see her. "She's still in surgery," a nurse told him gently. "It was serious. You'll need to wait." He collapsed into a chair, his whole body shaking. This couldn't be happening. He couldn't lose her. Not like this. Not when he'd wasted 3 months being angry instead of fighting for her. Hours passed like years. Finally, a doctor emerged. "Mr. Cortland, Ms. Laurent is out of surgery. She's stable, but she sustained serious injuries. Broken ribs, a collapsed lung, internal bleeding that we've managed to control. The next 24 hours are critical. Can I see her? She's unconscious, but yes. Follow me." Nothing could have prepared him for seeing Gabrielle in that hospital bed. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped steadily. Her face was bruised, her usually vibrant skin pale and fragile. Alexander took her hand carefully, as if she might shatter. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm right here, baby, and I'm not leaving. Do you hear me? You're going to be fine. You have to be fine because I need to tell you something. I need to tell you I'm sorry." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Gabrielle. I was wrong. I was stupid and selfish, and I asked you to be someone you're not. I fell in love with your fire, your passion, your dreams. And then I tried to extinguish all of that to make myself feel secure. That's not love. That's possession." He pressed his forehead to her hand, tears falling freely. When you wake up, I promise I'll never ask you to choose again. I'll support every dream, every ambition, every late night and missed dinner. I'll love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely, unconditionally, exactly as you are." The machines beeped steadily. She didn't stir. "Please wake up," he begged. "Please come back to me. I'll spend every day for the rest of my life making this up to you. Just please, please open your eyes." Alexander didn't leave the hospital for 3 days. He sat beside Gabrielle's bed, holding her hand, talking to her even though she couldn't hear him. He told her about his days, about the company he'd been neglecting, about how empty the world was without her in it. "Your assistant called," he said on the second day. Laurent Cosmetics stock is actually up 15%. The new lip line you launched before this. It's breaking records. You're brilliant, Gabriel. Even lying here, you're changing the world. He paused, wiping his eyes. I should have told you that more. How proud I was of you. How in awe I was every single day. Instead, I made you feel like your success was a problem. Like you had to be smaller so I could feel bigger. On the third day, her mother arrived from Brooklyn, her face etched with worry. Oh, baby, she whispered, taking Gabriel's other hand. Then she looked at Alexander, really looked at him, unshaven, exhausted, clearly devastated. You're the one, the billionaire? Yes, ma'am. He couldn't read her expression. You're also the one who broke her heart. Alexander flinched. Yes. But you're here now. I never should have left. Gabriel's mother studied him for a long moment. She talked about you every day after you split up. Even when she was pretending to be fine, I could hear it in her voice. How much she missed you. How much she loved you. I love her too, more than anything. Then you remember this moment, young man. You remember how it feels to almost lose her, and you never, ever make her choose between her dreams and her heart again. Never, Alexander swore. I promise you, never again. That night, as Alexander dozed in the uncomfortable hospital chair, still holding Gabriel's hand, her fingers twitched. His eyes flew open. Gabrielle? Her eyelids fluttered once, twice. Then slowly, agonizingly slowly, they opened. Alexander? Her voice was barely a whisper, rough from the breathing tube. I'm here. He was crying, laughing, bringing her hand to his lips. Oh God, you're awake. You're okay. What? Happened? Car accident, but you're going to be fine. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery. She looked at him, really looked at him, and her eyes filled with tears. You're here. Of course I'm here. Where else would I be? I thought. I thought you hated me. Hate you? The words came out choked. Gabriel, I love you. I've loved you every second we've been apart. I've been miserable without you, lost. Nothing matters without you. But I chose my company. No. He gently cupped her face, careful of her bruises. I made you choose, and that was cruel and wrong and unforgivable. You should never have to choose, Gabriel. Your company, your dreams, your ambition, that's all part of who you are. And I love who you are, all of you. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I missed you so much. I missed you too, every second of every day. He kissed her forehead softly. And if you give me another chance, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life supporting you, celebrating you, and loving you exactly as you are. What if I have to work late? She asked, a ghost of her old spark returning. Then I'll bring you dinner and keep you company. What if I have to travel? Then I'll either come with you or be waiting when you get home. What if I never want to be a housewife who just plans your dinner parties? He laughed through his tears. Then I'll hire a party planner and you can keep being the brilliant, fierce, incredible woman I fell in love with. You really mean that? With everything I have. He pulled out the small velvet box he'd been carrying in his pocket for 3 months. Gabrielle Laurent, will you marry me? Not with conditions or ultimatums or demands that you change. Just, will you marry me and let me spend forever supporting your dreams? She was crying so hard she could barely speak. Yes, 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 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had always belonged there, and kissed her with all the love and longing, and relief that had been building for 3 endless months. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, so much, and I'm never letting you go again. 6 months later, Gabrielle stood in front of the mirror in her mother's brownstone, adjusting her wedding dress. It was custom designed, elegant and modern, with her mother's pearls at her throat and her grandmother's veil in her hair. You look beautiful, baby, her mother said, tears in her eyes. I can't believe this is real, Gabrielle whispered. After everything, you found your way back to each other. That's what matters. The wedding was everything they'd dreamed of, intimate and elegant, with their closest friends and family gathered in a garden that overlooked the city. But the most beautiful part was the vows. Gabriel, Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion, I stand before you today as a man who almost lost everything by demanding you be something you're not. I was a fool. You are brilliant and ambitious and fierce and passionate, and every single one of those qualities makes me love you more. I vow to support your dreams, celebrate your successes, and never, never ask you to be smaller so I can feel bigger. I vow to be your partner, your champion, and your biggest fan. I vow to love you exactly as you are for the rest of my life. Gabrielle was crying before she even started her own vows. Alexander, you've taught me that love doesn't mean sacrifice, it means support. That the right person doesn't ask you to choose between your dreams and your heart, because they understand that your dreams are part of your heart. I vow to let you love me fully, to never wall myself off when things get hard, and to build a life with you where we both get to be exactly who we are. I vow to love you through the late nights and early mornings, through the successes and failures, through everything life throws at us. Because you, Alexander Cortland, are worth fighting for. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden when they kissed as husband and wife. The reception was a celebration of not just their love, but everything they'd overcome. Gabrielle's assistant gave a toast about how Laurent Cosmetics had just opened its 500th store worldwide. Alexander's mother gave a speech about how her son had finally learned that true strength means supporting the people you love, not controlling them. But the most memorable moment came when Alexander stood to speak. Most of you know that Gabriel and I had a rough patch, he said, and the room chuckled. What you might not know is that during those 3 months apart, I nearly destroyed everything I'd built. Not because I was heartbroken, though I was, but because I realized that all the success, all the money, all the power in the world means absolutely nothing without someone to share it with. He turned to Gabrielle, taking her hand. This woman right here, she's my everything. And today, I'm not just marrying the love of my life. I'm also announcing the Cortland Laurent Foundation, a joint venture that will provide funding, mentorship, and resources to women entrepreneurs of color who are building their own empires. The room erupted in applause as Gabrielle's eyes went wide with shock and love. You did this, she whispered. We're doing this, he corrected, together as equals. As partners. She kissed him then, in front of everyone, and the cheers were deafening. 5 years later, Mama, Mama! A small voice echoed through the penthouse. Gabrielle looked up from her laptop, where she'd been reviewing the designs for Laurent Cosmetics' expansion into sustainable packaging, and smiled as her 4-year-old daughter came running in, her curls bouncing. What is it, baby? Daddy said we can go to the park, but only if you come too. Alexander appeared in the doorway, their 2-year-old son balanced on his hip. I believe I said we could go to the park after Mama finishes her meeting. Which I just did. Gabrielle saved her work and stood, stretching. Park sounds perfect. As they walked through Central Park hand in hand while their children ran ahead, Gabrielle marveled at how much life had changed. Laurent Cosmetics was now a billion-dollar company, but she'd learned to delegate, to trust her team, to take weekends off for family time. Alexander had built his own company from the ground up, smaller than Cortland Industries had been, but more meaningful, focused on ethical investments and supporting diverse entrepreneurs. And together, they'd built something even more precious, a partnership based on mutual respect, unwavering support, and a love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Happy? Alexander asked, pulling her close. Deliriously, she said, standing on her toes to kiss him. Though I have a conference call with Tokyo later. I know. I'll put the kids to bed and have your favorite tea ready for after. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. He grinned. You're slipping, she laughed, the sound pure joy. I love you, Alexander Cortland. Thank you for loving all of me. Always, he promised, kissing her forehead. Every brilliant, ambitious, beautiful part of you always. Their daughter called out, and they ran to join their children on the playground, their laughter ringing out across the park. They'd built their empire. They'd built their family. They'd built a love that could weather any storm. And they lived truly and deeply and completely, happily ever after.